Is pain holding you back? Bowen Therapy with Panacea Healing can change that for you. It's never too late to recharge your health, career, or purpose. You have the power within yourself to change what no longer serves you, taking your life and health to another level. panaceahealing.com.au. You can do anything.
Hello everyone and welcome to the One Thing on Edge Radio Australia. And guess who's in the hot seat? Boom, boom, boom.
What did you just say to Aaron? It was like him, or he said it was like getting the keys to the Porsche.
Yeah. And I've got pedal to the metal, mate. Welcome Lisa, my co-host today.
Hi everyone, great to be here.
Aaron's actually behind the scenes today, so we are in the driver's seat.
I'm a little bit nervous. Are you nervous?
I am really nervous. I'm pooping my pants.
About what he's going to do behind the scenes, because we can see him.
Yes.
He's our Roz today.
Roz. I love it.
Do you remember that? You're probably too young. Do you remember the show Frasier?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
oh, my God,
Roz.
yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
So, Lisa, before we have a really one-on-one conversation, I would really like you to introduce our special guest, please.
fantastic. That's what I was just going to do.
Thank you.
So I would love to welcome Paris today. Paris Lemestre. Did I pronounce that correctly?
So it's actually pronounced Lemaitre, so it's a silent S in my name, but people often just say Le Maistre, Le Pastry, whatever
that's
floats
a good
your
way
boat.
to remember. Le Pastry, Le Maistre. I love that because we've got kind of boring names, haven't we?
Yeah,
Like,
Jones.
What's your name, Leanne? Jones.
Jones.
Byfield.
No, it's not boring. It's popular.
So how would you fancy up Jones? Jones.
Jones.
Jones. I love it.
Jones.
So Paris is here today to talk about her lived experience with addiction, and it's something that's very, very close to my heart, as I know it will be to a lot of people that are watching today. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's just incredible to be able to see somebody, having seen what you looked like before. I can only imagine how terrible you must have felt. I have never been an addict, but I have experienced it as a family member. So I know how heartbreaking, how heart-wrenching it is from a family's perspective. But what I would really love to understand today is what it's actually like. And I understand that everybody's experience is going to be very, very different.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I would love to understand more about what that feels like, what it looks like, if there's any signs, how it starts, what people, and we've only got like 40 minutes, don't we, Leanne?
Oh, we always go over,
yes,
honestly.
Yeah. So look,
Let's talk about it.
So Paris is a lived experience advocate podcaster. So she has her own podcast. Would you like to just tell everyone what it's called?
If I'm allowed.
Of course.
It's called Shit's Fucked, literally, as it is. And it's based on mental health and addiction recovery. And it basically started because of my own recovery journey through addiction and mental health challenges. And I just wanted there to be a bit more education out there for people. I wanted more resources to be available to people. And yeah, it's been an amazing ride.
And your website is so impressive. It's got so many resources that are available on there. Did you say you've only been going for 2 years?
Yeah, so I started in September 2023, but I only went full-time in the last 6 months.
That's incredible. Have you built all of that yourself, or is that? Yes. Wow. So you're a very, very, very talented young woman. So you had both an alcohol and a meth. I've always found it methamphetamine addiction.
Yes.
Which I'm guessing led you into the adult industry as an escort, and I'm guessing that was to support your habit.
So it's funny because a lot of people do assume that, but that actually wasn't the case. I did get into methamphetamines when I was really, really young. I actually started drinking alcohol almost daily from like 13.
Wow.
And then I was introduced to meth at 14
Oh,
under
goodness.
the presumption that it was weed, just because you can smoke it. And
Wow.
it was just like, oh, it's like weed. And I had no idea. I was so naive. And then it was like later on in life that actually became problematic. It wasn't straight away when I was 14 that it did. It was like when I was 20 that became problematic. And then I moved to Melbourne, and I don't know, like I was just so lost. I was, under the influence most days. I struggled with maintaining a job. It was just really difficult for me to do that. And that was because of my mental health as well. Like I wasn't in a very work fit way. And so it was just, I happened to meet someone who did that line of work, and they were like, if you enjoy sex, you can make some great money. And I was like,
what a lie.
I do.
I'm just going to leave the studio for 10 seconds because we've got some feedback happening. Oh, actually, I don't even need to leave the studio. I can hear an echo, Mr. Producer.
I love it, Erin.
Which I've never heard before. Have you
No.
ever heard the echo before?
No, I have never heard it either.
I don't need to leave. Thank you,
I
Erin.
really am curious about is often mental health and addiction go hand in hand. One usually happens before the other. So for you, was it the addiction and then the mental health, or did it come the other way around for you?
Well, I think, and this is what 𝐏𝐚𝐫𝐢𝐬 always talks about is, it's not so much why the addiction, it's why the pain, because there's always something before the addiction. And I know for me personally, that was I was a very dysregulated kid. I had gone through a lot of trauma at a young age. I didn't know how to keep myself like content or feel happy consistently.
So that was a family, that was your family background, would you say?
Yes,
More than self-trauma, it was through what you were put through.
Yeah. So, you can imagine, I guess, going through primary school and just not being able to manage my emotions very well. You're going up and then down multiple times in a day. And that's really exhausting in itself. I mean, I've been later diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, which is very much those exact symptoms. But for me, when I got introduced to alcohol at 13 and I realized that like soothing and calming effect it had, I was just like, wow, like this is my new best friend. Like I love this. Like I feel so good. I want to feel like this every day.
Yeah.
So that's how it started.
I think I actually had my first drink of alcohol at 13, but I wasn't addicted to it. I just pinched a sip of whatever was going at the time, usually beer.
So what does borderline personality look like?
Well, again, it's different for
Everyone.
because there's also different types of it. For me personally, it was just the constant fluctuates of mood. I just couldn't stay at a steady emotion for a very long period of time. Like it was really difficult and just really, really exhausting. And it was kind of like I felt things in a really heightened way. So if someone was upset with me, it was like, oh my God, like my world is ending. Like it was really extreme.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, it was really, really difficult to navigate that. And, that was still going on into my adulthood. Like I still struggle with that some days, but, now I've learned a few more tools to deal with it.
Is that more about what people think of you or you picking up on other people's emotions?
Picking up on other people's emotions.
Okay, so that's what we would call an empath.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was in the mental health industry for 10 years as a welfare officer, and so I have a little bit of understanding on some of the things.
Yeah.
And a lot of that now makes sense to me, that the tools we have now should be brought in to that system, because some of the things they're doing in the mainstream mental health protocols just don't work.
No.
And especially for someone that has a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction, they definitely don't work, because there's that that net has actually opened up and people are falling through it constantly.
Absolutely. And you'll find as well in a lot of our healthcare systems, they often will treat mental health and addiction separately.
They do.
So-
And I mean, this is 20 years ago and they did that very similar.
Still do that now.
Wow.
We
Okay.
have a comment there.
Oh, sorry, Lisa. Hang on a minute. How do I get to the comment?
You got to put it on the full screen
I'm getting taught, okay?
as we go along.
As we go along.
There we go. And now we can see it.
13-year-old for me too, Kathy.
Kathy, thank you for sharing. So
Thanks,
that
Kathy.
seems to be the age.
Yeah, I think the 13, that was, smoking. It was just testing everything, right?
So Edge Radio Australia is asking what's the difference between meth and crack? We're going to expect you to be an expert on everything you know.
Yeah.
So just say pass if you don't know.
I mean, I did my AOD, my alcohol and other drug studies, so maybe I should know this. But to be honest, I think crack is more of a US term, and that's usually crack cocaine, which is meth and cocaine.
Right.
So I think that's why there's confusion with that. But yeah, it's mainly meth over here. I don't know. I don't know personally many people who do like crack cocaine over here. But yeah, it's mainly just methamphetamine.
And so did you go ever from just smoking it to injecting?
No, I was very fortunate that I didn't go that path, only because I had people around me who did, and they deteriorated a lot quicker than someone who smoked.
Yeah.
And that was just something I was always really mindful of, even though, I wasn't really doing well regardless. Smoking wasn't much better, but just seeing what it would do to people, but also the long-term effects too. Like I've got friends who are having problems in their hands and wrists, carpal tunnel surgeries, their feet as well, all from intravenous using.
Were you living at home when this was going on with your family?
So when I was heavily drinking through high school, I was at home. When I used meth that one time when I was 14, I was at home. I did leave the family home at about 19, and that was because I had a really traumatic incident happen that did involve a family member, but I'm not gonna go into that story. But it was mainly as soon as I got out of the house, I ended up living with someone who used, and I was pretty much, just had my endless supply of it straight away. So yeah, I wasn't really around my family using. My friends wouldn't see it. I was very much living in the shadows, trying to kind of live a double life, really.
So do they tell you now that they actually knew?
Oh, I think they all had some clues, but none of them really knew exactly what it was. Because I had been through so much, and particularly that one trauma that had happened at 19, 20, a lot of people, particularly my family, were basically saying, oh, look, she's acting out, she's been through this event, of course she's not going to be okay. This is the result of that. And they weren't really going too much deeper into it. But then, they'd hear something on the old grapevine and, someone said this or they've heard that, and they'd question, but then it was also I don't really want to believe that.
Yeah, and maybe it's a little bit of, I don't want to believe it because what it will do it will hurt me. Yeah. There's a fear associated with that. Martine Shepherd's got a really important comment here as well. Your truth is very important for so many to comprehend why they did what they did. I have recognized many have experienced sexual and physical assault. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Big ones, yeah.
And actually, the figures are mind-blowing, aren't they?
Yeah.
Is it 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 people have actually experienced sexual abuse? It still blows my mind.
You Can't Help Mind Over Matter by Lindria. Yeah. So going back to that, you left home at 19 and you went from there to Melbourne straight away?
Not straight away. So
where did you live?
So I was I was living with a mate for a while. Then I ended up renting in a house share somewhere.
So you're quite functionable. You were functioning well, because a lot of people end up homeless on the streets. They end up couch surfing, all that sort of stuff. So you were still functioning enough to be able to rent a property.
I mean, is functioning the right word?
Well, functioning is just functioning, right?
It's a good point Leanne makes, though. I mean, having rented quite a few places myself, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a big job finding somewhere to live.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, definitely. Look, I was definitely getting by and doing the what I needed for my basic needs. But yeah, I was losing jobs left, right, and center. I
Wow.
wasn't able to sustain them, and I was, jumping from accommodations quite often.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
So what does it look like when you're an escort? What does that, for somebody like me that only knows what I see on in the movies?
yeah, that's a really interesting question.
So you have somebody that actually books the jobs for you. Do you mind me asking? Or
No,
is that all right?
that's so fine. So my, I guess, career as an escort.
Yeah, shall we think of another word?
I love that.
My career as an
career.
escort.
It's like woman in red, lady in red.
It's the oldest.
Yeah.
It's the oldest tradition, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
yeah,
the
oldest
it is. It is.
profession,
I
yeah.
mean, we got some
Oldest.
hard workers out there.
Yeah.
It was honestly, it started with an agency because I kind of have always been a little bit of an entrepreneur, to be honest. Always had that mindset.
Love that.
So
Love that.
started with an agency because I was like, I want to know how this works.
Yeah.
What do they have to organize? What do they need to do? Because eventually I want to be able to manage myself and not have to rely on anyone else. And so the experience with the agency was awful. Like it was full on. I mean, they took like 60% of your pay.
Wow.
Which is just ridiculous.
And do you get paid by the hour or by the night? Or
By the hour. And look, they'd be great rates, but you're losing 60% of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And then you
so
got to pay. Do you do a tax return?
oh,
Do you know why I ask?
we could do a whole show on
No,
this.
but do you know why I ask? Because
No.
when I was working for an accountant in my 20s,
yeah.
early 20s, we did the books for La Cherie,
Okay, yeah.
and she came in, and so did a lot of the girls, and they were studying at university,
Yeah.
doctors and lawyers and
Yep.
all sorts of stuff, and they were doing tax returns, and I was curious.
Yeah.
Oh, look, there are some women out there that do it really well and really smart. I was not one of those women.
Okay.
So did you do it to support a habit?
No, it wasn't to support the habit. I did it because I just couldn't function on the day to day. I couldn't hold a 9-to-5 job. I needed money.
Okay.
That is
enjoyed
an
it.
entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs can't hold 9-to-5 jobs,
I
Lisa.
like
You know
it.
that.
Yeah, you were psychologically unemployable.
So-
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. That's
So you
it.
would, I would imagine doing something like that. You'd have to separate your body from your emotions.
Absolutely, you do. I disassociated instantly when I went into those rooms, and that was something really difficult to like unlearn later. So, I had a lot of difficulty being intimate with people afterwards.
Wow.
I mean, I laugh now, but at the time, even when I just came out of the industry and I was trying to like date people just casually, I would leave in the middle of the night, being like, deed is done, off I go, you know, and then they're messaging me in the morning and be like, where did you go? And I'm like, what was I meant to hang around for? Like, I was just so accustomed to that. And I didn't know how to be, how to cuddle
You didn't know
that
how to be
person.
loved.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's
pretty
what it sounds
much.
like. You didn't know how to receive.
No.
You knew how to give.
I'd cut
sex,
that
but
off.
not.
Yep, straight
Yeah.
away. Yeah. So I was like, it was just a form of protection really for myself. And it took a long time to unlearn that. I still sometimes have challenges with that, like today. But thankfully,
Happy anniversary, by the way.
yes. I
Oh,
was like,
anniversary. Hang on.
yes,
What's that?
yes.
Yeah, we're very lucky that we've got her on today. I didn't
Oh.
know until she mentioned a little while ago.
Yes, it's my partner Dylan and I's anniversary, so it's our 3 years today.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, so I'm very lucky to have such a beautiful, loving man in my life who knows everything. So if he's watching this now, he already knows it all.
knows it all.
He knows it all. But he's helped me a lot through that as well, and connecting with myself again.
Oh, Nandro says happy anniversary.
Do you know Nandro?
I'm not sure.
Well, it's nice to have the love coming your way, because one of the things that Paris was sharing with me, Leanne, before the show was that she gets hammered. Like people are mean.
Oh, that's just awful.
Yeah. Well,
You know.
it's just the online space, though. I mean, if you're going to be in the online space, you
Oh, no,
have to
I
have
do.
a
Or maybe
thick
we're not
skin.
successful enough yet.
Well, I've had a couple that have reached, that have got to that stage with me, and I just send it off with love, and I just send it
Okay.
off with love and say, obviously, you've been hurt or you've been
Mm.
damaged by this, and that's not the place I come from, and send it back.
Yeah, I actually used to get, quite butthurt when it would first start happening. I mean, I've had a lot of backlash just from my past in addiction.
Yeah,
There's a lot of people that still don't understand that. There's still very much, I still get called a junkie sometimes. I had people messaging me telling me to like myself,
Yeah, that's
and
terrible.
yeah, but you know what? It used to upset me. But then my partner said, if you're going to be in this space, you need to have thick skin, and this is not about you. Like, this is
about
absolutely about them.
Yeah, it
so
is
it's like,
100%.
don't even respond to it. Don't give it any oxygen. Like, just block and delete. And so that's what I started to do. I just switched my mindset, and it just made me realize, there are still so many people who are very uneducated in this area. So, it was just something that I had to really think about and take on board and not take it personally.
So Nandro says, might know me better by Ferg.
Oh.
Love Prairie, heart on her sleeve, amazing
Thank
person.
That's lovely.
Love
Thank-
that.
I was like, Nandro. Who the hell is
Nandro, love that.
Yeah, thank you for watching.
Bless him.
So your partner, how did you meet?
Funny story, on a wine tour. And I was
Oh, wow.
I was with another partner at the time. Too.
Okay,
I was
wow, all right.
yeah.
What's his name again?
His
Sorry?
name's Dylan.
Dylan. No, nice.
Dylan
smooth.
sounds like a very wise man, doesn't he?
Yeah,
He is
Yeah.
a wise man. He really is.
He did a smooth move at the wine tour. Oh, I love it. So, what does Dylan do? Does he supports you obviously in everything that you do?
Yes.
Is he mainstream or is he entrepreneurial?
He's now just stepped into the entrepreneurial space.
Way to go, Dylan.
Yeah, so he's now, he's actually a fridgie, so he does aircon.
Yeah.
Nice
He started his own business, Cool Guys Air Conditioning.
Okay.
Anyone out there?
Nice little plug there for Dylan.
Cool guys, aircon. Yeah. And does he live up north of the river as well?
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he does mainly north of Perth, but he will come down to the city and the southern areas if need be.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful. So what I wanted to ask was and it might be a really dumb question,
Nothing's a dumb question, Lisa.
but so as far as addiction is concerned, like I know, and this is going to sound really, really trite, but I know what it's like when I used to have that time of the month and I would get in my car and I would go down the shop because I had to have chocolate. Like the craving was that
Yeah,
bad.
that's cigarettes, same.
Cigarettes, cigarettes the
30
same.
years smoker. So
Yeah.
it was like you find whatever you can just
Yeah.
go and get
Yeah.
through.
Yeah, because you're not going to live.
No,
you
that's
don't.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So is that
The same experience?
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, particularly with meth addiction, what I found was when I would get the cravings, like physically, the best way I could describe it was I felt like I was jumping out of my own skin. And the only way to stop that sensation was to have a fix, But technically you can write it out, but in your head in that moment, it's like,
can't.
I cannot push through this myself. Like, it's too hard. And then you convince yourself there's no other way to get through it.
okay? So when you have the hit and you go high, is it like an orgasmic experience, or is it just taking you back to normal because you're addicted?
You definitely still experience a high.
Okay.
I wouldn't say. I mean, there is such a thing as like chemsex, so meth can really enhance the feelings of like pleasure.
Yeah.
So that, I guess that's where maybe some people think about it being like orgasmic and that, using that type
I've just
of term.
always wondered why people would want to do it.
I mean, well, with methamphetamines, it absolutely floods your dopamine receptors. So
Okay.
you are just on a different level of pleasure. Like, you just feel so, what's the word? Because I don't even know if happy is the word. You just feel
Euphoric.
Yeah, euphoric is
Yeah.
probably the best word, but
Okay.
that doesn't stay, because then it goes into this weird space of, I don't know, you just start to feel like you're just buzzing, you're going a bit too fast, and then things become, it just doesn't feel as nice. So, I mean, initially when you first use, you will have an experience that you will never be able to experience again. That intensity isn't going to be the same the rest of the time.
Ever again.
No.
So if you're going to do this, do it on your deathbed.
Do it once. Do it once.
Do it once.
We'll
and
do
never
it
again.
together.
Yeah, on your deathbed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
I
on,
think we've got
Louise
another comment
on
there.
this.
Oh, Lisa.
Oh no, Leanne and Leanne and
No,
Leanne
but
and
Lisa's
Lisa
commented.
Leanne and Lisa on meth. Okay,
Lisa from, it's up on the screen. Your
Oh.
assistants put it there.
Just
gosh.
the amount you need to take over in time.
increase.
Yeah, it does. But I also find, I guess with meth addiction, it is such a strong drug that still even small amounts are going to, last over 24 hours. I mean, it's a really, really intense drug. And to come off it, you need at least 3 days for it to fully be out of your system.
And this is a problem that we've got, isn't it? That we don't have enough rehab facilities for people to go to.
Yes. I mean, well, it's a layered problem, because it's also the preventative as well, and it's teaching people how to be a bit more emotionally intelligent, so they understand how to regulate themselves without having to go to these quick fixes and self-medicating and self-soothing.
So how did you come off it?
How did I come off it?
Yeah, that's really and which one did you come off first? Was it alcohol? Was it meth?
It was
Was
meth
it prostitution?
Was it chocolate?
No, well, chocolate is still a goer.
Actually, let me think. It was the escorting first.
Yeah.
And then because I'm
What made you stop escorting?
Maybe a really ugly man.
Old.
Oh, there was plenty of those.
That's what I was going to say. Were there smelly ones? I really want to new.
I mean, to be
people
honest,
that need to shower.
To be honest, I've had some really amazing experiences in those spaces, because I did get paid the higher rates. I'd be the classy escort, if you will, so the more expensive one. So you'd meet all sorts of different kinds of people, and go to amazing places. I mean, I was taken out to Crown, going in rides and Ferraris and things like that. Okay. So definitely was experiencing that side.
Was
of
it like Pretty Woman? They didn't actually want anything at the end.
Look, some of them, but that would be 10%.
Yeah.
The rest definitely wanted something. So but what was the question again?
I know, we just went off track. We do that a lot. Sorry.
Stopping meth addiction. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So I stopped. No, stopping
Escorting
first. Yeah. So I
and
stopped that.
I think
what
you asked
made
why.
you?
Sorry,
why?
I'll be quiet this time.
Yeah.
Not an ugly man.
Oh my God, she's taken over my position of button in.
Well, I'm not butt naked.
No, not butt naked. So why did you decide to give up escorting?
I think because I knew it was fueling my addictions as well. As much as it wasn't the reason to support my habits, it was fueling it at the same time, because I would see a lot of people that would do meth, and even cocaine was a big one as well. And it's funny, I came across doctors, lawyers, people that you wouldn't think are doing these types of drugs.
That's interesting.
Very interesting. So it was just
Please don't tell me surgeons are on it. Oh, watch out.
Honestly, you would be shocked.
Yeah.
You would be shocked. So it's that was kind of something that I had to look at, because my life was just falling apart. Particularly, I had a lot of rock bottoms, but I'm a really slow learner. So it wasn't like a rock bottom happened and then I was like, yep, I need to change my life. This has happened. This is terrible. Let's start again. It was each time it happened, a slow shift in perspective happened. Another seed was planted. So slowly decided, okay, escorting, that's starting to really impact my life. It's messing up my routine. I'm staying up late at night. I'm doing a lot of drugs. This is not helping me stay away from it. And then eventually I ended up in a psych ward because I was doing too much meth and I was getting into drug-induced psychosis. So I then became...
Which one did you go to?
St. Vincent's Hospital in Melbourne.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And who put you in there?
I ended up having to take myself with my partner because I was just I was an absolute Looney Tune, and
Yeah.
I wasn't like, reality was not reality.
Yeah.
It was just,
I've been with somebody.
How old were you then?
So this was 2019. My maths is not my strong point. I'm looking at my
20,
fingers right now.
mid-20s.
I'm 32 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever that was.
Okay, yeah.
So then I ended up going in there for a while, and everything was just falling apart around me. A lot of my relationships broke down. I couldn't work. I knew I wasn't mentally capable of, even escorting either. It was just, I was just done. I was so exhausted, and ended up making the move back to Perth. And so that was another reason that I needed to really start reevaluating my life.
Had you estranged from your family during that period of time?
I didn't estrange, but I pushed them right back.
Yeah.
Like, they tried so hard to get involved in my life or to keep updates on me, and I just wouldn't respond.
Were you close to your parents?
It's a complicated question.
Yeah, so
it's like I'm close to my mum, my dad's. We've been working on our relationship for a long time, so at that point of time, no, we weren't.
But that gives hope to a lot of families out there with children in the same situation.
But see,
as
they
parents.
didn't know that I was in that situation, though, so I was still hiding all of this. I was living
but
my
I mean,
double life.
parents who think that their children are no longer coming back, or that they're not talking to them, or anything like that. It doesn't matter what they've done. There's still hope for those children to come back.
Definitely,
and create.
So what would you say to families that how can families help when they've got somebody that's struggling with addiction?
It's a really tough one, because I know for my family in particular, particularly my sister, she would often, try to question me a lot. She would want to just try to figure out what I'm doing on a day-to-day, and I found that really intrusive. And sometimes, like, when she'd heard things, heard the rumors and whatnot, she would confront me, and that would again push me back, and I'd push her away. So
confronting people's probably not
doesn't work as well as people might think. And honestly, they need to be ready to acknowledge it. Like, I didn't acknowledge it was an issue really until I came back to Perth. Even after the psych ward, I still didn't really acknowledge how serious it was, because I had convinced myself that this is how I was surviving. This is what was helping me for so long, and I didn't want to change it. So you have to, be ready for that change. If they're not ready for that change, anything you say to them is not going to help. It's only going to create a barrier.
But do you think it may place some seeds there for later? Not really.
No, because
so what would you? So just say nothing.
No, I think you can obviously express your concern and let them know that you love them. But this is the tricky part, because you've got to set boundaries for yourself as well. Because I mean, it's very taxing on the loved ones going through it, because they're watching, their loved one go through such hardship, and
well, they
ending up
often
in psych wards.
I can tell you from experience, they often think they're going to die.
Yes, and my family thought the same about me as well. So it's very stressful. It's quite traumatic as well for the family. It's not just the addict that's going through that trauma, but we won't see that at the time. There's no way you can make us see that at the time. We're too far in this hole. We'll see it later once we've climbed out of it, but not in the hole. And so all you can do is just make sure that they know that they are loved, because that will really help when they finally are ready. If they ever become ready, we'll have to be honest and real about that. Some people don't change. Yeah. But if they do get to that point and they know that they are still loved, that creates more of an open conversation to come back to them and be like, hey, I need help, because they know they're not going to be crucified when they come to you. So
it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think the thing that really was expressed to me, and I totally agree with, it's really important not to enable the user.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And as I said, you
And
have
a-
to set those boundaries.
But a lot of families do. They
Oh.
still provide a home for them. They give
Absolutely.
them money.
Yes. Yeah.
And therefore they're not actually experiencing the consequences of their actions.
Yeah, it's really tough because if you are always the rescuer and you are trying to rescue them constantly, then yeah, it will take a lot longer, if ever, for them to climb out of that hole because you're teaching them that you're always there to pick them up out of it. So they're not learning how to do that on their own accord. But it's hard as well because it's like you don't want to shut people off completely because it can be life and death as well. So it's like it's a really fine balance in knowing where like your boundaries are and knowing what you need to do to protect yourself, but then also, you know, sharing kindness and compassion and love to this person as well.
But it's also protecting other members of the family as well.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
the lengths that some drug addicts go to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Can you remember what your worst day was?
My worst day. There was a lot of those
There
days.
was a lot of bad days.
Yeah.
I
There was
don't
a lot of
suppose
those
you got up
days.
early, stayed in bed.
Honestly, I couldn't even tell you. But I remember there was a particularly hard time that I was experiencing because I was using so much meth. And what happens is your brain stops producing dopamine itself. That when you do start to come off it and you go through the withdrawals, you actually can get to a suicidal point.
Okay.
So I remember being in bed for like 3 weeks
Wow.
because I just
Wow.
could not produce dopamine and I was just on the brink all from my use.
Did you ever go and seek help during those periods of time?
I was seeing a psychologist during this time, but it was more of a checkbox thing. I wasn't really
okay.
honest with them about everything. It was just to keep people off my back, really. But I did finally go and see an AOD counselor when I was actually in quarantine for COVID when I came back.
Oh, wow.
That's actually
That's our favourite topic around here.
That's a pretty funny story if we've got time for it.
Yeah. Probably not.
Have we got
but-
time? Have we got time, Mr. Producer?
Why not?
Okay. All right.
It's funny seeing him out.
I
the
know.
back. He's-
I wanted to wear his hat. He wouldn't let me. I just want to acknowledge Debs because I want to
Yes.
acknowledge people who are commenting, and I really think it's great. There's been a lot of happy anniversaries, by the way.
Oh, great.
Truly, you have to be ready for a change before it can happen. Yes,
Yeah.
and I think that's really, really important.
So
So
true.
now tell us about the COVID story.
So you know how hardcore WA
Oh, yeah,
was
we
with
were
the
hard.
lockdowns. I was in Melbourne when COVID first
Well, Melbourne's
Oh, Melbourne's
worse.
not much better.
No. So yeah, we had curfews.
You
it was
had.
pretty
It was
full on.
awful.
Not that I obeyed them. I was still
No.
escorting and doing whatever else.
Oh, right. Am I allowed to ask if you were wearing a mask?
You can refuse to answer.
I'm
teasing.
teasing sometimes, but yeah, that's really about it.
That's funny.
But yeah, so I finally got to a point where, you know, I was just so exhausted. And you know how you could get like the $10,000 out of your super at the
Oh,
time?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not like the worst thing for someone like me to have access to, by the way. I ended up taking out that $10,000 and spending all of it.
So not on
Wow.
boob jobs or something, because that's what a lot of
No.
people were doing.
Nothing productive at all. It was terrible. I was just renting out Airbnbs and doing drugs. It was
Wow.
awful.
Oh, wow.
And so I got to a point where I was just plummeting. Like my mental health was so bad that I just thought, if I don't get on top of this, like I don't think I'm going to be around much longer. Like I was that exhausted that I really couldn't see a way to move forward. And I'd always dealt with suicide ideation most of my life, but this point was really serious. Like I could tell I'm like, right, like I'm on the edge now. Like I actually am so beyond exhausted. I cannot do this anymore.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting approved to come back to WA, which took a while. I got rejected like 3 times, but I think it was also my fault because I was really high a lot of the time that I was doing the application. So I think I might have messed
I would
it
have
up a little
loved
bit.
to have read those.
I don't even know what I said half the time. Anyway, finally got approved, was on the plane over to Perth, and around this time, so this was like June 2020, Around this time, the restrictions had just started lifting in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And so we finally were able to, be in a room with more than 20 people or go outside in general. And when we were on the plane, there happened to be a big outbreak in Melbourne.
Oh.
So you can imagine, in WA, they're so protective of their borders, and they've got this plane full of people coming from Melbourne, and there's been
the
a huge
infected
outbreak.
state.
Yeah. So naturally they panicked. So when we landed, and mind you, I was coming down really badly on this flight. So I was starting to go through the withdrawals.
Wow.
I looked really unwell. Like, I'm sweating. I'm looking grey. Very much looking like I've got
COVID.
the Rona.
Yeah.
So I'm coming off the plane. They've got all this border patrol. There's these nurse tents set up. I'm being questioned. Where have you been? What have you been doing? I'm thinking, oh my God, they're on to me. Like, they know I've been doing drugs. They're trying to find out about my dealer, or I don't know. I went into a very paranoid state, and then I got rejected from quarantine with my mum, which I was initially approved to do. And then I got thrown into 14 days in isolation in a hotel, which ended up being the best
savior.
thing for me. Yes, because I hadn't had a clear head in so long, and suddenly I was
So you
cut
had
off.
no access to drugs?
No access to
zero.
alcohol.
No alcohol.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I really had to face my own stuff, and I was still going through drug-induced psychosis when I landed. The first day in the hotel room, I kept hearing these flute noises, and I'm like, where is this coming from? And we were in Northbridge, and so I was like, oh, maybe it's coming from outside. And then I'd open the glass door to the balcony, and then I couldn't hear anything, and I was like, weird. Shut the door, come back in, the flutes start playing again, and I was like, maybe it's just because when I'm opening and closing the door, they're just stopping and starting. I was like, maybe that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And then I just kept opening it, and it would stop, and then I'm like, okay, what's going on? Close it, starts again.
So you have no insight into your own.
No, I mean, I started to realize at that point, I was like, okay, I think I'm hallucinating here. And this is actually not really happening, because, none of it made sense. So I managed to put myself to bed. But it was during that time, though, that I had to sit with myself and think, what I've been doing has not been working, clearly. This is where I am. And I ended up calling an AOD counsellor while I was in there and organised my first appointment with an AOD counsellor.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, while I was in
I've always
quarantine.
said that, and this is something that I actually wanted to create. This is during the time I was working in mental health, particularly, not an island, but maybe somewhere in the middle of Australia, a station, right, where people who have addictions go. They work on the station. They run through with counsellors and with everyone else. They run through their detox. They have all that happening, and then they go through and do a program, where they're actually working. So they're in the middle of nowhere. You cannot get anything. Do you know what I mean? Like the nearest shop is 1,200 kilometres away. That's the type of thing that I wanted to actually create.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is, for that 2-week period, you were that person in a hotel not being able to move.
Yeah, but I mean, I love the concept of that. But when you think about the reality of it, it's going to make it really difficult for someone to transition back into their community after they've done their programs.
Yeah,
because that can be really difficult. It's like learning how to go through this and recover from this while having these temptations around actually builds a stronger resilience, and you have more of a chance.
I've never ever thought of that,
overcoming it. Yeah,
because all the people I saw were a revolving door.
Yeah, of
they
course.
They would go into places where, and it was just a revolving door. I think the people that I know that actually did it really well was Shalom House.
Yeah.
But I don't. The other ones were just ticking the box as well. As far
and
as
it's also it's those core reasons why they're using it in the first place. That's what needs to be dealt with.
That's what it needs to be dealt with.
If they're not dealing with that, then they're going to keep going back to it.
Because for most cases, it's self-medicating, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. I would say 90%.
And I loved if we go, actually, just before I say this, we will be wrapping up soon. So if anybody wants to ask any questions, please do so.
Yes.
So it really painted a picture for me when you explained that the alcohol just felt warm, and I don't know whether
Like a
you use the
giant
word
hug.
like home. Pardon?
Like a giant hug.
Like a giant hug.
Mm.
Like remember I told you on the way here I picked Paris up and I nearly got lost, like the trade station's around the corner. And so I was telling her the funny story about being an Uber driver. But I always remember one of the people that I picked up, and it was Sunday morning. And it was around Northbridge somewhere. And I said, how are you? And he said, oh, well, to be honest, I'm not really good. I've just had my first drink and I've just come from AA. And we had this conversation and I kind of laughed and well, I didn't laugh at him, but I was laughing at myself. And I said, I'd never be able to become an alcoholic because I can only have one drink and then I'm like on my ear, like that's all my body will take.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'm exactly the opposite. He says, I have one drink and it lights me up and I'm ready to party. Like it wakes him up, whereas it puts me to sleep. And I didn't understand that.
Oh, I guess that also can come down to people being quite different in a neurodivergent type space. Like, so a lot of people with ADHD actually suffer with addiction, and it can often be that. So for methamphetamine, right, it actually calms them down rather than sends them off higher. Yeah. And then it's the same for alcohol. Alcohol is usually a depressant, but it might lift them. So it just depends on how our brains are wired as well.
Yeah. I'm sure it used to be so much simpler.
Did it?
I don't know. Well, I like to think
Back in our day.
I guess every
So what? Tell us a little bit about what you do, because just in a brief few sentences, and how you can help people.
Yeah, so I've got the podcast, Shit's Fucked. So there's, plenty of episodes on there. I interview a lot of people who are either working in the sector, so whether that's mental health or alcohol and other drugs, or it's other people who might bring in different healing practices like coaches, people who do breath work, like NLP, all sorts of different things. And then there's also the lived experience as well, who share their stories and what they've been through. So that can give a lot of people some different perspectives on, what might work for them. Like maybe they could give that a try, and also provides a few more resources and support too. And I'm also in the middle of launching a new business called Your Recovery. And that is launching in a couple of weeks. I've done my alcohol and other drugs studies and my mental health studies, and I've done my suicide intervention training. I've done
mental health first aid.
Yes.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
Just get a little shout out for mental health first aid.
Naloxone training as well, first aid training. But yeah, so that's basically one-on-one support, self-paced courses, very much a holistic approach in we're not just looking at the presenting issue, we're looking at all the factors of someone's life. What is their housing situation? What are their relationships like? What's their social well-being like? What is their education like? All sorts of different factors that can contribute to that presenting issue. We're going to look at all those key pillars.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because we are very complex creatures.
We are, and our systems today are not designed to deal with that. It's very much that we'll deal with the one thing, we'll slap a Band-Aid on it, crisis response, off you go. There's not, like, we're starting to get a bit more preventative care in now, but I still feel like there's a lot of segregation in our systems here. There's a lot of associations that still don't work alongside each other. It's just, it's really difficult.
Yes, yes, I agree.
So our time has run out, I think.
So I just want to end on this note. I think it's Lisa again. You're amazing, Paris. Thank you for all you're doing and offering.
Oh, thank you,
And
Lisa.
I think that really summed it up really well. Lisa L, not this Lisa, but Lisa L.
I'm Lisa B.
Lisa B.
We know who Lisa L is. Thank you for tuning in again, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. You actually are one of the biggest supporters of this program. And to you, Paris, we want to really thank you for coming in and sharing and being vulnerable, with your story.
Oh, my pleasure.
And I think that in turn will help so many others.
Absolutely.
And I think it's an important message.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, very much
It's
so.
been so fun being here.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on.
Wonderful, everyone. And thank you. And I'm going to end that now.